I'm Katie Roiphe, professor at New York University in the journalism department and the author most recently of Uncommon Arrangements, 7 Marriages. I actually don't think I know anyone reading 50 Shades of Grey. Although just looking at the statistics, I bet they may secretly be reading 50 Shades of Grey. I think a lot of people are reading it on their iPads and Kindles in their own universe, so I don't really know for sure. First of all, the stereotype that it's kind of just older suburban moms turns out not to be true, and about half the people buying and reading this book are women in their 20s and 30s and women in urban places. So it's not really just this suburban phenomenon. And I think that people are interested in it partly because of this fantasy of submission and fantasy of surrendering control, which is a pretty timeless one. And sadomasochism has always kind of existed and intrigued people. But it has I think, a special appeal right now at a moment where we're looking at the end of men. You know, we're looking at this particular point in time when women are closer to being kind of successful breadwinners than men, where they're the majority of students on college campuses are women. And the real socio-economic moment right now, you see male dominance as being kind of shaky and threatened in a way that it hasn't actually been in the past. So I think maybe right at this precise moment in history, we're particularly interested in these kind of old-fashioned roles. The idea of politics governing or really having anything to do with people's intimate lives was a sort of illusion. And you know, that whole slogan, that whole idea, the personal is political, I think hasn't quite worked. It's sort of an overly simple way of looking at the world to think that you can kind of legislate your intimate life according to how things should look, according to ideas of equality, according to the kind of same principles you would have about the workplace or the larger culture. I talk a little bit about the new HBO show Girls, which is getting a lot of attention, kind of 20-somethings adrift in New York, the new Sex and the City. And the thing about that show is that these ambitious, driven girls feel so kind of overwhelmed by the prospect of things like having to support themselves and by kind of the opportunity, basically, in short, that has been presented to them. And in a way, it's a sign of feminism's success that here is all this opportunity, here is all this equality. And it is one of the ironies, I guess, of our political moment, which is, do we want it? Do we want it all the time? Do we only want it sometimes? Do we only want it in some places? Do we want it in our office, but we don't really want it all the time? And maybe there is something exhausting about that responsibility to forge your own destiny that feminism envisioned for its daughters and granddaughters.